See that you're born an Italian if you want your life to be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great.
How about some Donadell?
That's a nice.
Hey there, Paisani, and welcome back to another episode of the Italian American Podcast. I'm John Viola, along with my partner in crime, the Italian American Wikipedia, Mr. Patrick O'Boyle, the notorious POB. We are here at the corner of Mulberry and Grand in the heart of Little Italy at Red Sauce Studio, coming to you from our red checkered tablecloth table and one of the most Italian corners in the universe. This is the Italian American Podcast. Thanks for being here. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a follow, any of the many, many things you can do to support this platform. We've got a great episode today. It's going to range all over in the terms of topics. We've got everything from what it's like to be an American in Italy, what it's like to get your Italian citizenship, all of the efforts that are made to be part of the blogosphere and share this story. And we have two wonderful guests with us that we are very much looking forward to introducing to you. And my partner in crime, Pat, here. I think, before we go to topic, you're mad at me because I made an ageist comment about your age.
You're an ageist.
Yeah, I know.
I want to denounce you.
Okay. I'm going to give you the
out there.
I'm going to let you denounce me.
I used the word young, and you told me in January I'm not going to be young anymore. Not that I'm young now, but for everyone born
I didn't say exactly
in
that
74
way,
and back, just so you know he's an ageist, but his day will come.
I didn't say I was young.
Well,
I think I include
we
myself
said
in the...
people. I try not to act my age.
No, you're very young.
I try to surround myself with young people because you surround yourself with old people, you become old.
What does the guy say you're wearing? A chore coat. You're very.
I didn't even know what that word was.
No, this is great news.
Like I got
one of our guests complimented your chore coat.
Because when I buy things, you know this. I find something that fits, I get it in every color.
You do, yeah.
So all right, you got 12 of them. Bing, bing, bing. Give me 12. Because I hate shopping.
But that may be one of the few
shopping.
things you have on. It's not custom made for you.
That's true. I wish it was because I got a bandiera. Look, I got a big chest. That's the problem I have in life. I have a huge, I'm broad, right?
You called yourself, one time you called yourself the Dolly Parton.
I'm built like Dolly Parton. If I was a woman, I'd be Dolly Parton because I have the broadest chest of anybody I know. If I had really worked on weightlifting, I got the physique for it. But then I got the Albanza here as a problem.
Don't talk to me. Yeah, that's why I think I'm wearing this cardigan.
That's why I like custom, because custom is, I got one guy got my measurements.
You're right, yeah.
He sends me his swatches, right? I send them out to people. It's like, pick 5. Boom, it's done.
Yeah.
I don't want to shop. I want to say, this is boom, boom. I
Very
got a pants guy. You have
a jeans guy?
No, the pants guy said to me, the woman who works for him, she's like his, she's like her, I call her like the prepper, like she brings in, she goes, I was the quickest she ever had. She goes, you were the quickest order I've ever had. And she's worked there for years. Because I came out, he took the measurements, it fit. And then she goes, what do you want? I go, just give me one of each. Boom, and I walked out. It was 2 minutes.
You are.
She says, you want? I said, I don't care. Just give me
you're very
bing,
trusting
bing, bing.
with your fashion. Yeah, you go.
Because I don't know.
Yeah.
See, this is anything I have is not due to me. I surround myself with competent people. So I tell them, get for me what you would get for yourself, and then we match it all together and we're done.
You have a man of fine
taste.
But
to people out there who hate shopping, it's the best thing. Because I don't want to go to a store and try. I hate clothes shopping. Yeah. So to me, if it fits and it feels comfortable, you get one in every color, and then you just go mix and match.
Not to mention, we live in a world nowadays where so much stuff is cheap and disposable, and the fashion changes, and you could buy. I mean, I buy a lot of stuff based on how novelty Italian it looks, as per this ridiculous.
I didn't know if you're going for the elf look, Christmassy. I was going to say, did you milk an elf?
That's the problem, is the colors just they transfer, right? So it could be. No, this is like I saw this online. I said, this is kind of like an Italian-American
that would be great
Mr. Rogers cardigan.
A bocce.
I was going to do, great for bocce. We should do like a Varsity sweater. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
That is the best thing.
Yeah, we could do that.
We could do a sweater with an arms. You could define. Nice. You could come up with arms.
You know I'm going to end up doing that with this, because this does look ridiculous otherwise. It would be nice to say this is a bocce varsity. But
sometimes we get each other in trouble because you feed me and I feed you.
But I buy stuff based on its Italianness for this. This is part of my. I feel like I get dressed for this.
You always throw me compliments kindly, about how I go down rabbit holes. Like I want to find the mix up. I'm going to find the best mixer.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
You on eBay and antiques. I mean, if you ever want to see him stop,
Yeah.
be on a highway with an antique store.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
in your family. I mean,
Yeah.
your mother's side, they're
Yeah,
antique
I mean, the
people.
fourth generation of my family.
But you like a bloodhound. You could find like you
I like
found the
to find-
Villaroma album.
I did find the
That was
Villaroma
the
album.
greatest thing. I had not heard Jimmy Festa's voice in 40 years.
Yeah, you were frozen. We
Yeah, it was
played that in the
frozen.
office.
That was a
yesterday,
lot.
yeah.
That's like that, and I'm not trying to be. That was like hearing a voice from a
The
voice you
Beyond.
thought you would never hear again. Yeah. Correct.
No, I love finding this stuff. But I will say, when it comes to clothes, this is from the UK. I think it cost me $30. That's
You're the expert.
Well, no, this is disposable. It's like it should not be this cheap, but it's made out of
That's
plastic. It's brand new. $30.
Oh, so we can all get one.
We could all get them. Yeah, we
Like
should
in the
before they.
1960s when they would do
I don't know if they're
albums?
going to sell out. They might sell out, but
gotta
yes,
put my
we should
glasses
get
on.
everybody on.
Now they
Where's
are.
mine?
Yeah, I get it from for Christmas. Don't worry. I'll make the patch and
Or his
everything.
birthday.
Make sure it fits my Dolly Parton.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get it taken in custom. But the truth is, that stuff
This
is
is sick.
disposable. That's a big problem we face today. Where in Italy, very different kind of sense of culture, right? People have, like you, a few really nice things that they mix and match, and it's the idea of like buy less but higher quality. That's very, in my mind, Italian. I don't know if that's
Yes.
changed in a
I would
globalizing
agree
world.
with that.
But you guys, you're living over there. You're spending time over there. You would know better than us, and it's a great topic today to kind of take a look from that comparative perspective of being American but being over there. Why don't you introduce our guests, because this is you found these two. I don't even know how.
But Anthony, you've been a listener,
Yes.
right? So this is like second wave. This is like how the tentacles of the family grows.
Yeah,
right?
that's the beauty of it.
And I had no idea until I saw your Instagram. What's the word I'm looking for?
Beautiful face. Go on.
But
Beautiful Italian faccia.
your presence. I didn't realize that you were, as John named us, professional Italian Americans. Mm-hmm. In some sense.
That's a high compliment,
I
but
like
thank
that.
you. Yeah.
And Christina, you guys work together. So
Yes.
So the first thing, because we have a lot of. This is like a buffet. It's like an antipasta episode. in the sense that- so part of what you do is Italian citizenship.
Yes.
And I think that right now, because I got to talk to like 400 listeners. I bet you that's the number one thing people are interested
It's a
in.
big concern.
And they
for
should
people.
be.
Yeah.
And we had Eleanor on, right, with Bespoke Italian, right? And you guys, but you guys are in the same business because we're trying to show everybody out there. There's so many people,
Yeah.
because so many people are overwhelmed.
Well,
right?
not to
There's
mention,
so
yeah,
much work going.
We have this competitive nature. You guys, let me introduce you first and foremost. Christina Prejean, Anthony Calvanese. How do you say Calvanese? What do you
Bravo.
say?
That's the correct
Calvanese.
way.
No, I know,
In the US,
but-
we say Calvanese.
Calvanese. I go between John Viola and John Viola, so I
Depends on
get
what
it.
country
It's,
you're
yeah,
in.
and I actually can introduce myself different ways in the same conversation over and over. People think I'm nuts, but it happens. But you guys are from Become Italiani. That's your citizenship service.
Yes.
You have a website, anthonyinitaly.com.
Yes.
But people talk about our competitive nature, but the truth of the matter is I have yet to meet an Italian citizenship company that does not have a waiting list. So
Yeah.
this is a problem,
Yeah.
and it, particularly as the politics change,
Yes.
and people are rushing and confused and scrambled. So I always believe the more the better anyway. We're big supporters of,
Yeah.
spread the wealth in the community. But
We
truth-
can cooperate.
we can cooperate,
Yes.
yes, and there's
it's like
room
we
for
can
everybody.
cooperate. There's enough
Yeah.
of business and room for everybody.
But there might not be enough everybody's for the room that we need in terms of citizenship, because people are waiting and waiting and waiting,
Yeah.
can't find services.
Yeah.
So, we're recording this in November of 2024. The laws have just changed recently. People are frustrated. And so before we go into the other questions we have, just an update, because you'll be the latest that our audience hears about
Yeah.
citizenship. The laws have changed, right? The minor law and all these things. What's going on?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, so the minor issue, it was a circolare directive that just came out in October. I believe it was October 4th, and then they made it public. This was the Italian Ministry of the Interior. They made it public around October 16th. But the way the law was before for iure sanguinis, which is by blood, your right to Italian citizenship by blood, was that as long as your Italian-born ancestor became a U.S. citizen after your first American born ancestor was born, then you would qualify. now with this minor issue rule that just came down, and it really caught everybody off guard. I mean, we've known about it for about a year, but we just had I don't think anybody knew how fast that they were gonna, just put that into effect. But now it went from, oh, you're fine as long as you're as long as your Italian-born ancestor did not become a U.S. citizen until after your American-born ancestor was born. Now or never.
Right,
Never
or
is
never.
also fine. Now they had to have waited to become a U.S. citizen until your American-born ancestor was 21 years old. So it's 21 years of wait. The nice thing is that a lot of people, what we see is they also have a female Italian-born ancestor, and we can talk more about the 1948 for women, Italian-born women citizens, but they have other ancestors that they can try to go through. But for some people, their dreams of becoming an Italian citizen are just completely, taken
Shattered.
away. Yeah, shattered.
I'm in the strange boat because I was in the middle of a process with a company that we've worked with that faced the same thing, overwhelmed kind of line stuff, and then the law changed. I kind of don't know where I am. I get that, and I get the stress that people are under because it's like anything in Italy. It's very hard to get an answer.
Yeah.
And this is a circolare. This this hasn't reached the Chamber of Deputies. So there's all these different ways that what's interpretive. I mean, I guess the question really becomes, how likely is this thing to change? Right. I mean,
thankfully, laws do change all the time, and they could, hopefully in the near future go back to the way it was. That would be amazing. But yeah, I mean, there's no way to say. But for us, it was very disappointing that the Italian consulates in the U.S. There's 10 Italian consulates in the U.S. and that all of them are on board with that. And have taken, before it was Philadelphia, who was just kind of waiting to see. It was the only consulate that was putting people's application on pause who had that impact them. But now it's all of the consulates. So even people like myself, my great-grandfather became a U.S. citizen when my grandpa was about, I want to say 18. And so my family, we would have been disqualified. And my sister, mother, niece, and nephew just barely got their citizenship in August of this year, August 24th. Wow. And so in October it came out, and we probably could have qualified through my great-grandmother, through a female, through the 1948 law. But still, yeah, it's very sad and disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a big mess. And I had a lunch one time not that long ago with the under minister or whatever, somebody in the ministry, foreign affairs that came, and he was very much an Italian politician, sort of like, sat through the lunch, was on his cell phone a lot. But at some point he kind of piped up when this issue came up, and he basically said, like, one of the main reasons that the state has become so restrictive about this stuff as a sort of, agreed upon stance is there's a lot of lobbying from places like the United States to restrict this because they're getting Italians from South America who are becoming Italian citizens, although they've been Brazilian, Argentine, whatever for all these years, and then coming to the U.S. or coming to wherever else they might want to go. And they're lobbying the Italian Republic like, hey, let's calm this thing. Because, again, half of the diaspora or more is there. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting kind of conundrum. And you can see, and I don't think he even realized he was like letting the cat out of the bag. He sort of said it flippantly and then went back to his phone.
But also, I call BS on that because our business partner in Italy works a lot with Americans as well as South Americans who want to get their citizenship. And he says in his 7 years of working with Brazilians in particular.
Because he's Brazilian.
He's Brazilian. So Brazilian, Argentinians, even some Mexicans that have come to him. When that diaspora happened, the immigrants that went to South America, they usually didn't naturalize. Mm-hmm. So
it mainly affects
only affects Italian Americans.
I guess that's interesting. I don't know.
I thought the same thing because I think most of the people who are applying for Italian citizenship are South Americans who are trying to get a better life because they have a lot more to gain by getting a European passport than Americans. Let's be honest, it's a ticket to a gold.
Everything else, yeah.
Especially with.
So I thought that there was an administrative overload in the offices in Italy because of the South Americans, which that could make sense to me if that was their target. But if that was their target, they missed because
they messed up.
It only affects Italian Americans disproportionately. again, I'm not on the inside, but I think from the information that we have, it's disproportionately affecting Italian Americans only because those are the ones whose ancestors did naturalize because they came to the U.S. and there was a system in place to become U.S. citizens.
Yeah, it's an incredibly disappointing turn of events.
Yes.
It really is, and I think that between my 6 years at the National Italian American Foundation, my 5 years, whatever we've been doing this, it's the issue that we see come up the most. I mean, people want this.
Yeah.
Whether it's
our right.
It's our right, right? Until they tell us it's not.
And that's what the Italian government tells us, that it's our right.
Yeah.
And in fact, we are already Italian citizens because it is our right, but it just hasn't been recognized yet.
Right. That's a big part. I mean, I was telling my wife this yesterday. We were talking about this paperwork last night. My wife's an Italian citizen. And she said, well, you could just become it through me.
Yeah.
But there's something different about that.
I agree.
Right?
I
I
agree.
was like, I don't want to be
Like,
a
no,
green
I
card
want it
bride.
through
You know
my
what I mean?
own.
Like
Right.
it's my family. I want to reclaim.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I'm like, I want the town that my great grandfather, this and that.
Yeah.
Of course, my wife, she's Tuscan Abruzese, so she just cut to the root of it. And she's like, well, the kids are going to be under me anyway. I'm like, that's true. They're already Italians under you, so I mean nothing. So I'll just
score
come
myself
through you.
out.
Yeah, I'll score myself. Yeah, I'll be in the guest room. Thank you very much. But it's true. It's a tough topic, and I feel bad. I really feel bad for those people who are in line waiting, going through this. It's not cheap. It
Yeah.
means something. It's an
And
emotional.
It makes us feel bad too because it's the one thing of our business that we have no control over, but our business is surrounded by, that's the center of it. So it's hard, for that one client. Thankfully, he was a newer one, but he just completely had his hopes and dreams taken away from him by that chocolate.
Like you said, for now, we'll see. Technically, the law didn't change. This is just a chocolate. Maybe in a year or two,
Could you explain that to people, what the difference is?
I'll defer again to the lawyer.
Well, my understanding is that the chocolate is a directive, and it still hasn't been made law officially. It's a directive by the Ministry of the Interior in Italy, right now, the Ministry of Interior has told the consulates, this is our directive, you need to follow it. And so they are following it. But it does take time to become an official law. So,
Are there any efforts to lobby
yes,
against it?
we need listeners to lobby.
Yeah, how do we do that? Tell our listeners how they can go out and help fight this.
I mean, it's hard for us to say, and my opinion is as a service provider in this, we don't really have much room to say, oh, you should change this because we have financial incentive to the law going back to the way it was. But I think organizations like NIAF or groups like this, just to get people to understand, the big thing is the education of understanding, because there's so many moving pieces to Italian
Confusing.
citizenship. Being able to understand it is level one, and then more
Being able to speak on it, being able to lobby, know what you're lobbying for, but that's really what it is, so that they can make sure that the law stays as it is, which is that they wouldn't have to wait until the American-born ancestor turned 21.
I also think is an interesting case here. I think I see a lot of responses online from Italians in Italy who will see our, pride in having the passport, and you'll get those sort of snippy comments like, this is a country where the child of an African immigrant has lived for 2 generations and cannot become a citizen, and here you are, and you know nothing, and you eat spaghetti and meat. So I think there's also a very there's this sense in Italy that, I guess it's only Italy and Germany left, 2 of the EU countries where you acquire citizenship by right of blood, right?
I think Ireland too. But
Ireland,
yeah.
all right. And I think there's this sense that that's not a progressive way to do this anymore, right? And so there's this cosmopolitanism to the idea that you should be a citizen by right of residency. And somehow it's an antiquated idea, and we're going to be the kind of baby thrown out with the bathwater in that, like, these people of the diaspora and these, bumpkin cousins that left, they don't deserve this. It's the people who come here. And they're not wrong about necessarily people that come and become part of the system. But I feel like sometimes we get tossed out with that at the altar of sort of cosmopolitanism.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about that. There's a lot of people who also immigrate to Italy from Albania and really all over Northern Africa and whatnot. But I will say that doesn't really have anything to do with us as Italian Americans. That's more of the Italian government. If they want to make someone who's immigrated to Italy an Italian citizen within 3 years, if they do this, X, Y, and Z, that doesn't have anything to do with us. what I would say as an Italian American from Italian immigrants who came from the south of Italy is that they were kind of forced out of Italy. You know, in my opinion, from what I've learned, from what I've studied, from what my grandparents have told me, is that they were forced out of Italy because of poverty, because the North was taken from the South. And maybe this is a big controversial
Not
issue.
here. It's not. I mean, you got the Southern flag behind you.
Exactly,
This is
you know,
what we've been
from-
preaching this for years.
Yeah, we're from Napoli, and his family as well, very close town nearby. But they didn't necessarily want to come to the U.S., but they had to, and so we're back, baby.
Here we are. That's right. All
We're
these
back, full circle.
all these hordes of Tirani. We're coming to get
We're
you
coming
guys who
back.
are here. Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean we've done a lot of presentations and stuff on this. The territory that was the Kingdom of Two Sicilies in the years before unification, the 10 years before unification, had the lowest net emigration in Europe.
Yeah.
10 years after, to 1870 to 1880, it became the highest. So there's a fundamentally,
Italy failed them in a
unnatural.
sense.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Totally.
right.
So
yeah.
now we're back.
100% failed them.
So here we are.
They did
Yes,
think,
they are.
I mean, like if
We should be marching there with the bourbon flag. That's how we should, with that beautiful white flag.
You know, that's the beauty of the Italian culture. I mean, my great-grandpa immigrated in 1906 when he was about 13 years old. And here we are in 2024, and I'm still so proud to be Italian, so proud of my heritage. I knew everything growing up about where my family was from. You know, I mean, that's the beauty of our Italian culture, how strong it is for generations, for, decades,
Yeah.
years.
Did your family go straight to California?
No, we went to Buffalo.
Oh, you went to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Oh wow. 'Cause
And
we,
then-
we know a lot of people in Buffalo. That's why.
Okay. Yeah. So my mother's last name, I'm Italian through my mother. It's Coppola, very like Napolitan. But they immigrated straight to Buffalo. And then when my mom was 13 years old, my grandpa looked up and he saw there was a window in their house and it was white. And he said, Jay, why did you put the white sheet up on top of the window? And she goes, Frank, that's the snow. And he goes, I'm done. I'm done. We're getting on a Greyhound bus and moving to California. So that was that. And my mom, grandma, and grandpa, when she was 13, got on a Greyhound bus, and 5 days later they're in San Diego.
You really can't find like a more opposite places. Literally, like
I know.
directly diagonal geographically across the country, but also culturally, weather-wise.
There was a lot of because I'm going off into down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
that
I
scary
I see your eyes. Yeah,
There's a lot of connection between Buffalo and San Diego. There was a lot of Italians from Buffalo who wound up in San Diego.
Yeah.
Because
I
Brendan, who
understand
works
why.
for us, is a
Yeah.
He's from Buffalo.
due respect to our
he's
friends
the
in
expert.
Buffalo.
We probably know all the Italian experts in Buffalo.
we have a lot
when it
of
comes to
friends in
history.
Buffalo. Yeah,
And there is a lot of there's a tremendous. There had to be a connection. There had to be someone had a job or
I
something.
think that's what it was. My grandpa knew. Somebody told him, you got to go to San Diego. That's the dream. So he was like, I think he knew one Italian person who was there, and he's like, I'm going to follow them. But my mom said every night for like 3 months. So they lived in a hotel in downtown San Diego.
What year would this have been about?
This was in like 1965 because my mom was born in 55. So maybe 1968-ish. But she said they lived in the Pickwick Hotel. It's a hotel that's still there. It's a different name now, but it's downtown San Diego. And she said every night she would hear my grandpa on the phone with family from Buffalo crying, saying, I can't get a job. I'm trying.
Wow.
And then one day, he was a painter. One day the union gave him a job, and from then on, thank God, we stayed. But everybody in Buffalo was like, you're going to be back next year. Of course, the kind of negative attitude. And he's like, I'm going to make it. So, yeah, we're the only ones in my entire family who went to California.
Wow.
Because
we do travel that way.
Archbishop Corleone from San Diego.
That's right.
He's Buffalo. There's a lot of
Yeah, but
Buffalo.
Yeah, right. You're
They,
right.
they all
You're
came
right.
after the war.
You're
We
right.
got to do an episode. Thank you.
We
for
gotta
another-
explore
another,
that.
Another rabbit
That's
hole.
a
Keep me
niche-
up 3
that's
o'clock
a
in the
niche.
morning.
He'll
We
be.
gotta
Yeah,
do-
you'll be on records.
We got to do we got to do an episode. The road from Buffalo to San Diego.
Yeah,
Because
that's
we
right.
found a lot of it. An interesting thing why that fascinates me is we found a lot of internal migration in the U.S. Right. So if you go to the Italians
definitely.
in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and we'll talk to Mariana Gatto. Like they went to New Orleans, from like Sicily to New Orleans to Denver,
yeah.
to L.A. So L.A. is like the fourth stop. Like the Italians
Yeah.
in Dallas and Houston.
Yeah.
They're New Orleans people.
Yes, yeah.
And so there's like two
they all
step.
talk to the same kind of friends, and they
Yeah,
said,
like
"Come
they're like
this
one
way."
generation, like
Come west.
the immigrant generation goes to New Orleans, the next generation goes to because one thing we found with the video, like on the road series, that has blown us away, because you're in the umbilico del mundo here, right? New York is like the what do you call it? The
Belly button.
Belly button of the
Yeah.
world. And we have a belly button of the world mentality.
Yeah.
People, I call it in the channel to wear. Anybody who gets a New York TV station, Manhattan, we have that mentality. But we've gone out, and the more we travel, the more we find Italian people, and the most you never thought they were their places.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we start to
Georgia.
calculate. Were there Italians in Georgia?
Yes.
A couple.
He knows all of them.
But they
All
went
three
to
of them.
Georgia first?
No.
No.
I'm in Georgia because my dad left Massachusetts.
Well, you're a two-stepper too, because you go from like, so Springfield would be the base.
Yes.
Nobody goes straight from Italy to Georgia.
That's what I'm saying.
I know some.
Yeah, but you never know. That's the thing we found. It's so interesting. Like I come from Brooklyn originally, right? We moved out to Jersey when I was a kid, and we happened to move
You're
to
like the OG.
Yeah, I have my own immigrant experience there, but we happened to move to a town in Jersey with no other Italians, which is rare
hold
in New
on.
Jersey.
You found the only town in New Jersey.
I did. It's the only
that was
town.
a completely
It's
correct.
the Irish, almost 100%, at least in our experience. And so we didn't leave town much. It was only as I got older, I thought New Jersey was an Italian desert. In my mind, I'm like, I got to go back to Brooklyn. But then I realized it's like most Italian states, it's like more Italian than some Italian
God
regions.
chose that to send you there to make you who you are today. You
true.
need to thank
He did.
Chatham.
That's true.
Chatham made you.
I would never be so into this if I wasn't.
Yeah, correct.
That's very true. But I think that we do have that mentality, especially here in New York, that's centric. And as we've traveled out, like Pat says, we've found all these amazing communities, and you dig and dig and dig, and they've been there in some cases. Some cases, especially in the South, those communities have been there before there was in Italy. I mean, that New Orleans diaspora went into Mississippi,
New
went
Orleans
into
is really
Alabama.
the oldest.
It
New
is. It's really the
Orleans is
oldest.
really
You
the
know?
oldest.
Well,
And
that's my
amazing.
other half. Is I'm Cajun. My dad's side. I'm Prejean. Is my last name.
Oh, that's like Smith. That's like the
Why is
Cajun
that?
Smith.
I don't know why you'd never say it like that. Sorry, I thought that was insensitive to laugh. Yeah.
How did your father grow up in San Diego as well?
No, my father was born in Houston, which is right across the border.
Sure, it's
from New
basically,
Orleans.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could your grandparents speak
French.
Acadian French?
Yeah, yeah. They only my grandma said they didn't really speak English.
So were your grandparents World War II generation?
Yes.
They're the last ones who really spoke French, I think. I think
Probably.
after the war killed it.
Yeah, because my dad never learned it. But yeah.
I met, because like another wacky experience in my life. When I was in one of your trips to New Orleans, I met they were Ursuline nuns. They were Ursuline nuns, but they were Cajuns. Is that the correct word? Because it's
Cajun.
different when the Cajuns. And they said, so they're born about like the time of World War II. And they said their parents grew up speaking French.
Yeah.
And they grew up speaking English. And the parents did not want them to have an issue in school.
Yeah.
So they would only speak French amongst themselves when they didn't want them to understand. And they said, like, now it's too late.
Yeah. That's true.
You know, it's funny because we talk about this a lot, the loss of Italian language in Italian America. And we say, the war and the enemy language and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But then you also think about, much like the depletion and dip in dialects, regional languages in Italy, similar here, because, right, Acadian, French, and a lot of these other languages.
You know who got it right?
Well,
The Polish.
really?
Because the Felician nuns, which was a Polish order, they were very strict about teaching Polish in their grammar
Well, it's like the
schools.
Greeks, right? The Greeks
Yeah,
had a
they were
church
like
about-
the Greeks.
But
yeah.
I think that the advent of national radio, the expansion of national radio, the advent of television, the advent of more affordable entertainments and things like that.
And just blending in.
Yeah, it just blends people together. It's like
But you know who I think was really
like
good at-
accents are disappearing too,
Accents
right?
are gone.
So that's
That's
the point.
gone.
If accents are disappearing, so too are languages.
One day I'm going to be on. They'll have
You're gonna be
tapes of me.
preserved, yeah.
when I'm dead,
Yeah.
they'll be
The
able to
New
take
Jersey
me,
archives.
because we're the
we got
end.
our best linguist to analyze this audio.
Yeah,
Figure out what
that's
he
it.
was saying.
What was he saying? By the way, we have a guest we have to bring on. There's a lady, I'm going to forget her name, from Hoboken, like Joanne from Hoboken. So she's a caller to Joe Piscopo's show, but she has the best New Jersey accent. She says beautiful. She called Joe beautiful like 5 times. I'm like, Pat has to meet this lady. She's like Miss Hoboken.
Yeah, but hold on. But I know we probably said it before. Hoboken and Jersey City and all Hudson County, as per NPR,
yes.
was categorized as a New York suburb linguistically.
Right. You speak a
So
New Yorkese.
technically,
Right.
we're technically, because I've said this a million times, but you know what? Let's do it 1,000,001. Because he yells at me. You repeat. Remember I got in trouble for Messa Maradada? I was put in the naughty box. I used it on too many episodes. But when they were casting The Sopranos, Newark has a different dialect. So Newark and Essex County had a different accent. But when they were casting The Sopranos, So they went for a New York accent,
More
which only works in Hudson County. So the accent, because Gandolfini didn't speak like that. So they had voice coaches, from what I understand, come in to give him a New York accent, which is not correct.
It was just more stereotypical.
It was more stereotypical. It played on a national
Hollywood.
stage.
Oh.
But part of what I wanted to bring you guys on to talk about was, so what fascinates me about Anthony's story, why I think it's such a flower that want to boom on the podcast, is that I learn so much from guests, right? Not guests and from listeners, because they say things and they ruminate in my mind a lot. So I have found that, so if you had, and in generations, it's a lot of factors that matter. So if you have someone who's Generation X, who grew up in an Italian community or a part of the country where there were a lot of Italian Americans, the World War II generation, the people born about the end of World War I, the early 1920s, they still had a lifestyle that was influenced, even if they were American born and had never been to Italy, there was enough of an Italian experience. So if you're living in Springfield, Massachusetts, and your family's from Bisceglie, right?
But Brasiliano.
Braccigliano, I'm sorry, Braccigliano. So Braccigliano, we have friends in Sal and Dario up there. Braccigliano was a huge community in Springfield, Massachusetts. There's the Feast for Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which was, and so if you're living in the 1970s in Springfield, you're going to have a very Italian experience, right? So it's going to be an easier, going to Italy, a lot of stuff is going to click. I know a guy who came from Salerno to Jersey City in 1970. He was 14 years old. And he said the first Sunday that he was in downtown Jersey City, he walked to Mass at Holy Rosary, and he could smell the gravy coming out of all the houses. And he knew he was going to be all right, because I knew I was going to be at home in America. I had the same smells I had in Salerno going to Mass. But now, what's interesting about your experience is you're born after that, and you grow up in what we would classify, I don't know if you would say it was fair to say, an Italian desert.
Oh, yeah.
In Georgia,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you go from Georgia to living in Italy.
Yes.
So you're an Italian American who grew up in an Italian desert. So growing up in an Italian desert, and then as a millennial, right? You qualify as even a young millennial. As a young millennial going from Georgia to Italy, how did your sense of identity get affected of what you thought, what made you Italian, what made you American? What was the whole identification journey?
Sure. I mean, a big part of it was being detached from the Italian American core here in the Northeast. I didn't grow up with that really at all. So my idea of it was even more the stereotypes in the movies, and it's all the Godfather and stuff like that, all of which I love, of course. But then so going to Italy and saying, like, the differences between Italian culture and Italian American culture, and we were talking about this morning. It is weird. It's like I kind of leapfrogged over my Italian American roots, which is more prominent, I would guess you would say. Anybody in the U.S., it's like there was all that. I missed out on a lot of that because compared to a lot of my cousins that are still in Massachusetts, Boston, New England, they still grew up with all that. I didn't. So for me to go to Italy and learning, proper Italian, it's being the first one in my family to learn Italian after 100 years. It has been really interesting. And to come from Georgia, especially where I live in Italy, in Umbria, it's kind of similar to Georgia because it's not that well known. It's very green. Georgia's very green. Everybody's very nice in Georgia, very friendly. Coming from the South, I feel like, I don't know, it just kind of makes sense. So, yeah, to me, it's been interesting to see that difference between that. And then also, I've noticed it in myself, and you kind of give me a hard time for this, is that you're kind of like being a snob now because now you live in Italy. Now you think you're better than everybody.
Better than us.
It's like, well,
That's endemic, I think.
that happens, and it's not. It's just like, well, I speak Italian, and my, Italian Americans don't even speak Italian. It's like, well, so what? Who cares? Like, it doesn't even matter. It's because I live there. But I don't know if that answers your question. But it was interesting going from one extreme to the other, and then also just seeing the difference in. And now I appreciate so much more. Italian American is its own thing.
Yeah.
And those who are aware that it is its own thing, like you guys, it's like it becomes a really powerful and beautiful thing. It's not like they're pretending to be Italian, and they don't really fit in with American culture. I probably present as more of an American than an Italian American because I don't have like a New York accent or anything. I sound like a hick from the South. Maybe I don't. I don't know if you guys notice any accent difference, but
you're the first generation of the non-accented America.
That's true. Yeah.
I think
That
so.
everybody sounds like they could be on TV.
Yeah. But what made you go? Like, if you grew up in Georgia without that sense, of being part of this community, what makes you go to Italy? What makes you find Umbria? What makes you move there?
Yeah, so I'll try to tell it quickly. Basically, I learned about the possibility of getting Italian citizenship through ancestry, which is just kind of a nugget of idea I heard from my uncle, and I was like everybody, oh, that sounds cool but complicated. Let me know when you finish it. And a couple years passed, nothing happened, and then my cousin and I were chatting in 2021 about I'd never been to Italy. And we were talking about the citizenship idea, and I was like, let's just go to Italy. I've never been. Let's go to the town. Let's go to Prejean and just see what happens, just meet people. And we'll do the side mission of going to get some of the original documents that we would need if we wanted to do the citizenship thing. So we went, and like anybody on their first trip to Italy, I fell in love with it. It's like, I could live here. We get rose-colored glasses. And I just loved it. And after that trip, I learned that I researched the heck out of how you can get the citizenship, whether you do it through a consulate in the U.S. versus getting residency in Italy and applying in Italy, which is a bit faster. And as soon as I learned that was a possibility, that was September 2021. By the end of October, I decided I was going to move to Italy 5 months later and just said, I'm going to just take a break from my engineering job. And I wasn't a break. I ended up leaving. Long story. I'm going to go spend a year in Italy, get my Italian citizenship, travel all around Italy. I want to explore. I wanted a new experience. Yes, it was Italy. I loved the language. Obviously, the food goes without saying. Beautiful country, beautiful culture. But I had never left my hometown. And so I wanted to I just had this itch to do something. It was like, I was 29 years old. The window is not going to be open forever. Might as well just do it. So I just went. And that was almost 3 years later. I'm still there.
That's where we met.
It was supposed to be just 1 year. And Umbria, because when I applied for citizenship, I was part of this big Facebook group where Christina and I connected, and she was kind of on a parallel process of wanting to move to Italy as well to apply for her citizenship. And she connected me with this company that helps people apply in Italy because you need residency with housing and et cetera, and you need like a rental contract, and if you don't speak Italian, it's a process.
And a realtor.
Yeah, people that have housing set up. And that company works in Umbria.
And now we work with them.
Now we work with them. They're business partners. We work with them. They do kind of the Italy side of things. So I didn't know anything about Umbria, and now I love it.
Yeah. We were in neighboring towns, 1,200 people in my town, and
it's like 4,000.
4,000 in his.
So you're in Umbria too?
I was in Umbria, in Perugia, the region.
Yeah, in that province. And then we hung out a few times and just...
Yeah, we finally met in person, and I met his cousin. They're awesome people, and we're like, we're both fun. We're both smart. Like, let's do this. We're both experts in Italian citizenship.
We were passionate about helping other people get and kind of achieve the dream that we have. It's like, now we understand the process.
Yeah.
She's a lawyer. She's very, detail-oriented. I'm an engineer. We're both kind of entrepreneurial mindsets. Like, we could put our minds together and create this for other people.
And we wanted to create something that was affordable, because when I was going through my Italian citizenship, it was myself and then my partner at the time, and so for him and I, it was going to be like the cost of putting, down payment on a home for the two of us. And I was just like, okay, that's not a possibility. So so we were like, let's also make something affordable for people, not like cost an arm and a leg. And so, yeah.
So that's the story of Umbria and why there. Yeah.
Did you, I've spent time in Umbria, and it's a very low-key region, I find.
Yes.
Very medieval.
Yeah, medieval. They love their medieval. That's their identity. Is their medieval identity, and they're kind of chill. I found them to be very nice, chill people. Yeah. What was some of the from someone who really just dove in, right? Because you love this country, you liked all the beauty of Italy, right?
Yes.
So you're encapsulated in that love affair.
Yes.
So when were there? And I don't say reality in a bad sense, but like my friend used to say. Somebody I went to college with, she goes, when you date someone for the first 6 months, you date their representative.
Yeah.
And then after 6 months, you meet the real person.
Them.
When you were past that 6 month mark in Umbria, what were the positives? What were the negatives? What did you anticipate? What did you not anticipate?
The positives were, like we both did, arriving first in a small town, technically not first, I traveled around a bit, but I moved into a small little village, which was the best way to learn Italian, where nobody speaks English. So that was incredible. And just getting to know small town culture and just seeing the pride that takes place. It's just, I can't think of another country that has the hyper regionalization that Italy has. Even a small town.
Nobody
with
does.
4,000
Every little village
with
is
the
its
food,
own
everything.
country.
It's all its own.
400 people. A frazione that is adamant that it's not, it's been subsumed into a rival
Yes.
town. It's like,
Yes.
look at Samango.
Correct.
That's where his family
They
comes from.
said that they claim that when they became a frazione, when the no who really created the frazione, that was another gift from the Savoys.
Really?
They created the comune and before that, when the Bourbons were there, every town functioned as its own independent
Right.
kind of. I'm sure Lou Mendel can be the corrections on this.
Right, exactly,
But
yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
the idea of if you look through the old historical records, they'll have Borgo, but the Bourbons sowed the seeds of every town having that independent identity.
Yeah. I've heard them describe the people from his town, which is now Frazione, right? Describe like this as if they went in duress to right, and they did in some sense.
They're like Kurds.
like Kurds.
It's like we're
yes.
people without a nation.
Yes,
but know
exactly.
what amazes me is that they are the town and the frazione are a quarter of a mile apart. Yet they say that dialect is different. Like they'll find a word. And,
Yeah.
well, like they sound like
Sure.
a little,
Absolutely.
But that's Italy. That's
That,
Italy.
that, that is
That's
one of the
Italy.
most beautiful and interesting things about the country is
Yeah.
the language and the diversity of the language. So that shocked me, just how you can just go deeper and deeper in that and just find there's always, you can slice the pie in half again. And it's like, oh, the dialect's different here and here. One thing I learned after spending time there is Italy has this reputation of everybody being this kind of warm and open culture, and you're going to arrive and just say like, "Oh, I have an Italian
Ciao,
last name,
paisani."
ciao
It's not
paisano,"
like
and they're
that.
going to invite you over, and yes, they are very nice people, and you can find very amazing people, especially if there's a familial connection. But it's not just like they're not just there to entertain Americans that come and go on vacation there. It's like they have their own culture, they have their own traditions, and the culture I have found, at least in Umbria, and I've been all over, but I've only lived in Umbria, is it's a little bit more closed than people think. It's not so easy to just break into friend groups because a lot of the friend groups have been groups for 10, 15, 20 years. They're from their hometown. Maybe they went away to college, but they came back.
Yeah.
And for a foreigner just to show up, even if you speak decent Italian, it's hard to break into these circles. So that can be challenging, and you can at times feel kind of lonely when you're still surrounded by people. It's like, they're nice and they'll like go to the bar and they'll buy you a drink, but sometimes it stops there.
Because
Yeah.
it's a kinship group more so
Yeah.
than a friend group. That's
But
that's
not
the-
only that, but like their grandparents knew each other.
That's what I mean. They're
you know?
kin. They're,
Yeah.
they're
Yes.
like, we talk about this all the time. When Italian Americans, again, it comes to that same idea of like your family went from Buffalo to San Diego because some paisan said
told
to
my
some
grandpa.
other paisan. So like we travel like when like you go away for a while, you have to leave like water for your plants. You put the string in, and like it just one drop follows the next drop. Like that's how we travel, right?
Yeah.
Some trusted agent, some kin that we know says, "Okay, come." It's
Yeah.
the same thing there.
Chain
So-
migration.
Yeah.
Chain migration,
Yeah.
but,
Love chain
but
migration.
kinship
Yeah.
is our. I always said like when I used to work at NEF, I always used to use the word paisan, and somebody said to me like, "Well, why don't you say amici once or say this or that?" And I use it on our intros here because I like the idea of the etymologically speaking. Right, where does paisan come from? Paese. Paese is the most Italian word in the world. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to mean. It could mean the nation.
Yeah.
Could mean the town. Could mean the frazione.
Yeah.
Could mean the street. It's the place.
But it's
so
intentionally
opaque.
it's on purpose.
Yes.
It's 100%
Yes,
on
and
purpose.
Yeah.
Italians are great at that, right? And linguistically great at that. So the idea of being paisan with somebody just means you're the same people of a place.
The same,
And I
yeah.
love that
Yeah.
because that could translate in so many
Connects.
different ways. It
It's
connects.
the connection, yeah.
And I think that's the thing about Italy's social networks is like their grandparents probably, went to school together and who's distantly related, especially in these small towns. So
Yeah.
breaking into that, it's not like moving to a new American city and going to
everyone's like, "Oh, let's have
trivia
a-"
night and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like, oh, you come next time.
Yeah.
Yes,
They can be
exactly.
your friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be a paisan
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you don't have that generations of, that's
It's
just
almost
the
like
reality.
to invite someone into your home. If for an Italian person, it's like you have to know them for decades or something.
Yes.
Yes. Have you guys experienced the same thing? You've traveled all around Italy. You've experienced something similar when you are in places where you don't have any connection.
Yeah, if you go and you don't have any connection, I've felt you certainly can earn a connection.
Sure.
Like it's interesting because it's multiple. I've had both sort of experiences. Like I remember my wife and I were in Rome and we were going to visit her zia in a town called Tagliacozzo in Abruzzo. It's like an hour and 15 minutes from Rome. So we hired a driver and it's a guy who it was an older guy, Simone. Anytime I go to Rome, if I needed like a hired car, I'd call him. Got to know him, chat. He knew my parents' names and stuff. And so Simone comes with us, and we go for lunch, and Tatina comes out and says, "Oh, but tell him to come up." And then all of a sudden, like we're out, we're exchanging pictures of his kids, and like it was very intimate, right, and very immediate that he sort of became part of our circle of family. And I've seen that kind of stuff with a lot of Italians. Like the barrier drops pretty quickly, and they bring you in. But then again, we don't live there, right? So it's a different thing. Like in those instances of this is so nice and sweet, but then everybody goes back to normal. It's a different thing than like I'll see you again tomorrow. You know what I mean? That takes more, I think.
To your question about after the 6 months, what do you notice? In addition to that, I've noticed culturally as well, is because we work completely remotely. So I'm on my computer, whether it's at home or at cafes and stuff. At least if you're outside of a big city, and in Italy it's basically Rome and Milan, mainly Milan. If you're working at a computer at a cafe doing the whole like remote work or digital nomad thing, you're going to look like a weirdo. And I've just gotten used to that. I'm the weird guy at the cafe with a computer where everybody else is like chilling out. And
it's like akin to drinking out of a water bottle in it, right? Like I always find if I drink out of a water bottle, I know I'm disgusting.
Yes.
57 million
Everyone's
people.
staring at you.
Like, oh, yeah, ski fun, right? Like, that's who we are. We are Americans. So, yes, we work in multiple,
You just get to a point in Italy where you're like, you know what? Yes, I am American. It is what it is. I'm
it is
sorry.
what it is. So
sorry,
that,
not sorry.
So that takes some discipline. If you are going to be an entrepreneur, especially a remote working entrepreneur that's computer based, you kind of have to be on your own. You're on a little bit of an island, unless you basically move to Milan, which is not. I like Milan, but I don't really want to live. Maybe, but that's interesting. And also, I found that. Without sounding like, oh, they need us, I think bringing kind of an entrepreneurial spirit to Italy, especially our age group, I think is good because I notice a lot of people, maybe it's a generational thing, but it seems like a lot of people are kind of box themselves in career-wise and opportunity-wise. It's like, oh, I grew up in this town, I'm going to get a job in this town, it's going to be kind of in this thing. But they don't see what else is out here. So it's kind of cool to go there and be the different perspective. And you learn from them, and I think they learn from us.
Yeah.
But you know what that is, though? Because I'm hard as anybody on the Italians, but I always give them credit on this count, particularly the young ones, whatever young population is still there. That is so deep. Like we've talked about this on a bunch of episodes.
The mentality.
The mentality, because we come from a country that was built on risk, right?
Yeah.
You got to get on a boat, starting with Columbus, whether you like it or not. Somebody's got to get on a boat and go like, I'm out. I'll, whatever's on the horizon, I'll see you. And then, the majority of our country is descended from populations that are not indigenous. There was a risking ancestor at the root of all that. And we have a system built for it, right? You don't like the president 4 years. You don't like the Congress, it's 2 years. If you fail in business, you have bankruptcy. There's all of these mechanisms to pick you up again, right? And reinvent yourself. And it's this big, wide open country with very, other than a couple of barriers like the Appalachians and the Rockies. You just go from Buffalo, and if you didn't work here, go to San Diego, right?
Yeah.
That's America. Go out, my son, and become anew.
Yeah.
And that, first of all, psychologically doesn't translate to Italian because we're like, stay with the family, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
In a place where up until post-war, most cases it was harder. It was easier to go by boat around the peninsula to another town a few miles away than to go through the mountains.
Yes.
Right? It's a spine of mountains. So everything is local, and the current system, there's not, the system has been in place since unification and probably before, is a risk-averse one. So there's no venture capital culture really to speak of. It's changing now, right, as a globalized world. But I can see why people take the safe job and stay with it, because there's thousands of years of sociology behind those decisions. You know what I mean?
And the way everything's in place. After living in Italy, I moved to Spain once I got my Italian passport, because I'm like, I can be anywhere in the EU. And when I was trying to buy a house, and it was similar to Italy, they were saying that there's an incentive if you don't have it's a special contract with your job. If you're an entrepreneur, you're seen as unstable, and they're not going to want to give you, the bank's not going to want to give you a mortgage.
Yeah.
So the whole system is more in place for, that kind of mentality as well.
Yeah, and also,
It doesn't promote entrepreneurialism.
No, it does, and it doesn't promote. Look at all even the successful companies, right? Because of labor laws. I don't know if it's changed recently. I'm not up on the labor laws, but like, if I recall, once you pass 15 employees, it's much more difficult to terminate somebody and make changes.
Yeah.
So what do? They're like, as the company grows, they find like, I'm going to start another company here, but or they pass up on growth, and like we tease about it a lot, right? I remember I always tell a story about my wife and I trying to order these terracotta pots for Basta Fazoula for our wedding gift, and we had a 500 people wedding. I said, "Oh, we'll order 250 of them. Every couple's gonna get a beautiful pot with beans and some kit they made in Campania, right? When you want to make your own Basta Fazoula kit, you walk have a wedding, and here you go. It's beans, pasta, and all, spoon, the whole thing." And I tracked down the company and called, and we were getting married in October, and I think I called them in like March, and the guy was like, "Well, 250 of them, Ferragosto's gonna come in August, and we won't." And I'm like,
forget about
why?
it.
Who has this guy ever sold 250 of these in a pop? Probably not. Probably not in a year. And then as I thought about it, I'm like, well, it's probably a small company, and there's way too much bureaucracy and red tape to expand beyond. So like, sometimes you just prioritize the life as opposed to that expansion,
which is so different from the American business mentality.
Yeah, we're like, sure, you want me to chew
do it,
through this table? I'll do it right now.
I'll do it right now.
I won't
I'll go
sleep
dig
for
out
days.
the clay myself. With my mouth if I have to. Like, I don't care if my hand falls off. I'll make those pots. And the Italian guy's like,
They're just not. The simplest
They're not
example.
incentivized.
Yeah, the simplest example, and people, my friends are going to listen to me, and they're going to say, "Why do you keep bringing up this example?" But it's if you're at a place in Italy and you get a drink, a glass of wine or a beer. In the U.S., if they see your cup is almost empty, at least in the South, I'm assuming here as well, the waiter walks by, they see it, they're like, "Do you want another one?" Just asking, "Do you want another round?" You can say no, but most people are like, "Yeah, we're an easy sell. If you're drinking, you're already an easy sell." In Italy, you have to ask for another one.
They will not bother you at all.
They're like, "We don't want to bother people." It's like, okay, you don't have to do this to Italians. If you see a table of Americans, just say, "Do you want another one?" They will say yes. If not, you're leaving money on the table. It's like €6 like that. Why are you gonna? They're just like,
It's amazing. It's just a different priority, And I always hesitate to say it in a critical way because neither is better, right? Like,
no,
they're fine. They're a first world country. Everybody's alive. I mean, there's no right and wrong.
But how much of that is an American tip culture?
Also,
Because we haven't incentivized.
Yes, that's true. We incentivize
a waiter in Italy is a real profession.
They get paid a working wage.
Yeah.
Same in Spain.
So what's your story? What got you to Italy, and what was your experience there?
Well, what got me to Italy? So I guess the first time that I was in Italy for a long period of time was when I was in the Air Force, and they had this program for officers where they want you to be bilingual and, fluent in other languages. So I was one of 3 that was selected for this really awesome program in Florence to study Italian for a month straight. So I said, okay, this is my dream. I have to come back here someday. Then the next year I was deployed to Afghanistan for a year. And so again, I'm like, someday I'm going to get back to Italy. And then after, I think it was right during COVID. I was in the middle of getting my paperwork for doing my Italian citizenship, and I thought, you know what, this is an awesome opportunity. I still don't have children. Like, I have the freedom. Why not get it in Italy? It's a lot faster. There's pros and cons, but it is a lot faster to getting your Italian citizenship at a comune in Italy. So I reached out to the company that now I work with on the Italian side, and they said, yeah, we work in Umbria, and so we'll put you in this town. It had 1,200 people, didn't have a bus stop, or it had a bus stop that was kind of far, but no like train station or anything. And I didn't have a car, so I was really just limited to that little mile radius of a town for about 5 months. But it was a beautiful experience.
Tell them about when you'd be working at the cafe on your computer and the guys that would come by.
Which part? I mean, Italian men, they're a little perverted to say the least.
It's one way to interpret it. Sure, why not?
They would just be like, oh, how come, what are you doing here? Why are you're here by yourself?
Oh, yeah. They would always just be like, cosa fai, Cristi? What are you doing? They'd be like, ma non sei, the first time, they're like, well, you're not from here because it's a small town. Everybody knows everyone and everyone's grandparents know everyone. And I'm like, io sono Italo-Americana, I'm Italian-American. And they're like, oh, and they were very welcoming and stuff. But and then after that, if I just told one person, then everybody else knew who I was.
Of course.
And yeah, every day at around, I think it was like 3, all the old men would come in and play briscola. There was one, it was a bar, which is, kind of like a restaurant, pretty much everything. Anything you wanted to do in that town, it was at this bar. And all the Italian men would come in, do briscola, and then when it was time, when their wives were like, come on, dinner time, then they would all leave. But they taught me how to play briscola, and I learned a lot. I mean, it was just incredible. Every day is a learning experience. So
Yeah, it sure is.
But
especially in a small town.
No, but you were obviously you were in Afghanistan, and then Italy, Spain, eventually. Where else did you say you lived?
Also in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, which the Italian Argentines are.
It's like the most
an
Italian.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Italy's complicated. Argentina's complicated.
Yes,
on steroids.
I know. I
That's a
know.
whole
Yeah.
other.
It's
can of
incredible.
worms.
Yeah.
You've seen like the whole axis of Italianness around the world.
Yes. Yeah.
What
which
made
is
you
cool.
go to Spain?
Well, Spain, I just what was it exactly? Again, I was in Madrid just kind of on a short-term thing, and I said, you know what, I would love to live here someday. And then after law school, my childhood dream when my parents got divorced, I was 8, and I was like, I want to be a lawyer someday. Then after the military, I was like, okay, I need to make that happen. So after law school, I was like, I'm finally able to make it happen. And then with COVID and working remotely, I was like, after I got my Italian citizenship, I was like, let's try out Spain. I loved, I studied Spanish growing up, and I'm from the, San Diego, which is 15-minute drive to Mexico, to the border. So yeah, and I loved the experience because I love, I'm very proud to be Italian American and now also Italian as an Italian citizen. But what I love about Spain and living in Spain is I felt like the people's mentality, at least in Madrid, was a little bit more open-minded. And
I think they're totally different.
yeah, very
I think
different.
there's no connection.
Yeah.
Except that when they controlled the south of Italy, we got some of their words.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Lapis,
Yeah.
Camposanto.
Yeah.
We got
Very much so.
Samonata.
Very much so.
That was about it. We're a million times more like Greeks than we'll ever be like Spanish.
Yeah. There's not a lot in common. But what I loved about Madrid in particular is that it reminded me so much of New York City, but it's very, very clean, very safe. It was just it's like all the best parts of New York City without the bad parts.
It's also like an organized, like, I'm gonna get in trouble, but Spain, Italy overwhelms you with culture and art. Like every town in Italy is a UNESCO World Heritage
yeah,
Site.
you're just
When you get
constantly
there.
learning. Yeah.
But Spain, I feel, is what Italy would have been if Mussolini had lived to a ripe old age. Because Spain is like, you smell Franco everywhere because it's organized. You're in Madrid, Atocha Station, right? If the train's coming at 8 o'clock, 7:59, choo, 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 choo. The train comes, it's beautiful. Nobody talks. They're silent. That was my experience in staying in Madrid. Silent, the doors open, you go inside, and you're, la próxima parada es el Escorial. So,
Yeah, they're very
Wait, do you
formal.
do those voices? I thought I recognized.
it was like every fight, and you're on the train in Spain, it's like in 20 minutes you will be at El Escorial
Yeah.
if you're in Spain. 15 minutes. Italy will never tell you where the stop is. Italy, you
You're
don't
supposed to know.
But I was on a train one time in Italy, and I didn't know nobody, and I said, I have to get, so my theory, Beppe Severino came up with this, so I'm stealing his theory. His theory is Italy is intentionally dysfunctional so that you have to build personal relationships.
That's interesting.
And his idea was, if you're on a train, like
Well, what's wrong with
apply
that?
it. No, but seriously,
That's
Spain blew me away because I'm like, in Spain they tell you what the next stop is. In Italy, you have to ask the conductor, the guy who takes your ticket. The family sitting across from you. You have to start a conversation. They're going to talk to you because when's the next stop? Please tell me when the next stop is
Yeah.
because the stop will come by the time you figure it out. The train goes in Italy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you tell me, why could they not announce it? But that's part of the Italian intentional
Experience.
dysfunction. And like Spain, I just found Spain so scarily
It was easy
organized.
to live. Yeah.
It's easy. Like
I like places that are easy to live, that want me there, and that make it easy to live, to get around.
but they don't need like Italians.
No, but they do have. I mean, it's still Mediterranean
They're
diet.
food people,
Yeah.
but they don't have the obsession.
No.
It's like we eat, like, someone's making, like they're kind of stoic, right?
Yeah.
Well, we eat to live, not live to eat. It is a completely different thing.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, they have tapas and stuff, but I was surprised in Spain how much people use frozen food, jarred food, like
Yeah.
stuff that would get them condemned. See, Italians like to beat up on us because we're like, they watch a movie and then they think they're a U.S. expert.
Yeah.
But Spain does a lot of stuff that in Italy would get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Like they use certain products that an Italian would never come out and say they used. I found that there's a lot of stuff in
It's
Spain.
changing in Italy too.
That's
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it
It's
is.
changing in Italy too. I saw somebody online the other day, 3 a.m. in a train station eating pasta out of a vending machine that like was heated up in the machine, and like that sense of expediency and convenience. I
the
feel
whole-
like
the
that's
whole
the
world is
global.
changing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll never
You
forget
wouldn't
when
have seen that a couple years ago.
No, you would have never seen that. I mean, I'm older, but like I go back to an Italy of the gettone, and it's just a different thing. My father-in-law was
Yeah.
telling me I was with my father-in-law in his town in Abruzzo. We went to the local cafe in the piazza, and the guy was telling me that the bar started selling frozen pizza because it was cheaper, it was easier. And so like, imagine
That's like a
in this
sin.
little yeah, it's like
That's
oh my
incredible.
goodness.
I remember
it's the
being
world.
in Italy when takeout pizza existed.
Thing,
I did too, yeah.
And it was like a shot. It was like
I'll never forget the first time I saw a pizza box in Italy.
Yeah,
I was
I saw
like,
pizza
holy
box. I was-
Nice.
I remember
that.
that.
I
I've seen
was
everywhere.
I was
It
there
almost
in
makes you feel like,
2001.
darn it, that's it's such a bummer to see.
Yeah, I look. Everybody wants the modern conveniences and things, and I think that this is not. That's
You're gonna
we
have
can't
it-
make Italy a museum, right? That's not fair to the Italians that are there. But there is something about paying before you order.
Yeah.
And, well, there's something about going to the gelateria, and you're gonna have to pay a cover if you sit here, and right, that's where you pay for that. Like
See,
some of those old ways. There's something. beautiful
I
about
think
them.
the lira to euro was part of that.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, yeah.
My friend had a great story. When she would go to Italy in the summer and she would stay with her mother's sister, she loved gelato. So she would go down to the gelateria and have them give her basically the American equivalent of a quart container. And she would take it back to the house. And my friend would just like, as we would say, pig out
Yeah.
on the ice cream, right?
Yeah.
And she went back after Italy went through all the economic crises that came from that conversion. And her aunt had grocery store ice cream. And she asked, but not thinking like, oh, it's just maybe the gelateria closed and something. And the aunt was kind of beating around the bush with the answer. And she goes, I realized my aunt couldn't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that had a lot of change in Italy too, because economic. I mean, if you were there
Yeah.
before in the were you guys there in the Lira days?
No.
You couldn't
Oh,
burn through
different world.
money.
No,
There was a
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I mean, as an American, you could have nothing and still be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Everything was in bazillions, right?
Yeah.
But everything was so cheap.
Yeah.
You
That's
would go
how
out to eat.
Argentina is now.
Yeah.
Sadly.
But the reason the Italian stuff was cheap was because of monetary policy keeping it cheap. Like it wasn't a country that was people weren't suffering. They
Yeah,
actually had
yeah,
substantial
yeah.
savings. It was a much more vibrant economy. It wasn't just a matter of like
Oh, sure,
inflation,
because
right?
it,
Yeah.
it made it affordable. For
Made it
us.
affordable for us. It made it affordable
Yeah,
for them.
sure.
It made foreign exports, which was their bread and butter, the luxury goods that we were going to buy, or Britain was going to buy, or wherever. If you needed to, you could manipulate that currency and make them more affordable to an outside audience. It was a huge tool in the arsenal, arrow in the quiver that's been removed, and it's made the country a different country.
Yeah. And
But-
even working with, I don't know if you guys have ever worked with Italians, but the
That's
work
a whole other
mentality,
book.
yeah,
That's a
it's
whole other book.
funny. In Afghanistan, I mean, I was at a NATO base, so there were, all Italian, Italian soldiers from Spain, U.S., whatever. And of course, I gravitated towards, the Spaniards and the Italians, and they'd always be like, Chris, like, let's go have a cappuccino. And I'm like, yo sono America. I'm an American military. I'm not Italian military. I can't go just drink a cafe
do that. Is
that true?
any time of day.
Do
Yeah,
they have more freedom than our troops have?
the troops definitely. Yeah, I mean, yes.
You were sent by God here.
And they were also
I'm going to tell you why. I have a question for years. Well, answer that. I'm going to tell you what God has sent you here.
even
Well, I
like
have proof.
uniforms.
We got
My proof is this. I've
Oh.
asked for years. Yes, sir. I have asked for years. Do Italians have good K rations? Did you ever say to the Italian soldiers like Luigi, Let me take. What do you call those things?
Oh,
MREs.
Yeah. Meals
MREs.
ready to eat.
Did you ever say to the Italian guys, "Let me taste your MRE"? Well, you like, wow.
I've never.
They got
I
really-
don't think they have. Okay, I will say. I know we don't have much time left, but this is what I'll say. I've never seen one Italian MRE, but in Italy, in Afghanistan, the Italian soldiers built right when they got there on base. They built a wood-fired oven. And so we had, I was the only non-Italian soldier, the only American that was invited to these events once a week or whatever it was, where they would make huge pizzas and just have like amazing pizza
That's
parties.
incredible.
And it helped me get through Afghanistan. A year in Afghanistan, it wasn't, I didn't have an amazing time, but they helped the time go by and make it more enjoyable with these beautiful wood-fired made pizzas.
That's for Michael, because I've had many guests. I want to know what the Italian military eats.
I have a lot of friends.
I
Pizza.
pizza. I would like to be. I don't want to fight in anybody's war. That's
I don't
not
think
my
they have
thing.
MREs.
But what do they do in trenches? They like boiling macaroni. What do they do?
That's a good question.
I guess
They
don't.
get
have
those
them
pasta
MREs.
fazool kits.
Yeah, probably. Here's your pasta fazool kit. That's where they're going. That's why I couldn't get them
Do you
for the
know any of
wedding.
these guys? Can we invite like Comandante General?
I'm gonna find you one. I know how to get our hands on one. I know how to get our hands
I
on
want
one.
Italian. I want to come in here and say, what do you
wanna
feed?
taste it?
I want to know what you eat every day.
Yes,
What do you have
Commander.
for
I'm on
lunch?
it. Don't worry.
I want to know. I want to go to a bank. I want to see. It's just a sick thing.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get you one. We could do a little taste test next to each other.
Look, I guarantee you they're going to eat well. They would not go to a war that they. Like Russia was. They going after Russia during World War II. They're not going to go to a country where they can't eat well. So I'm sure for Cyprus, wherever they want
All
a
right.
peacekeeping mission. I know you're tuning me off. I know there's other people out there. They care about.
If you're out there,
message me, and we're going to go to an Italian military base.
yes, if you have access to K-rashes from
Aviano.
Italy,
Wait, no,
please
that's a
send them
US
our way.
in
We'd love
Italy.
to try them. We'll cook them on air, Pat. We'll go through the whole thing.
I would love to go because their uniforms. They'll bring all their medals out.
They're
there.
beautiful. Yeah, they are beautiful. The
They're cool.
Italians have
They're-
a very
You
nice
know all these
military
people from
tradition.
NIAF.
Yeah,
Get
we're
some
gonna work
general.
on it. We'll get you.
Yeah, we know. I know who we're going to get.
All right. We'll get on it. We're going to work on the MREs. If you're working on your Italian citizenship, Become Italiani is a great option. Reach out to our new friends. There is many, many ways to skin a cat and an ever-changing understanding of what these laws mean. So hold strong. Don't lose hope. If you care, you're doing it for the right reasons, there may be an answer. So stiff upper lip. Keep up the hope. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See that you're born an Italian. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born an Italiano, and your life will be great. See that you're born an Italiano, and